Welcome to the Big Four Accounting Firms podcast, brought to you by big4accountingfirms.com and the Big Four Accounting Firms YouTube channel. Before we get started, just wanted to remind everybody to support us if you have a chance or if you can. Even $1 helps, and we have a link in the description to a website called Buy Me a Coffee. It's just a way to donate to us and support us. Again, any amount is helpful so that we can keep putting out content. And there's also other ways for you to support us in the show notes to this podcast or on YouTube in the description. In today's podcast, we're going to be talking about a question that I got from a listener about which practice to join or which firm to join in the Houston market related to tax. And I mean, I can't offer the perfect answer to this question because I don't know the partners or the practice specifics in Houston, but I can offer a little bit of guidance and how to go about researching. So what I did is I went to each firm's website, the United States website, since this person was looking in Houston, and you look up the partners there, and you can check out their background, and you know which area you're going to interview in. And if you're in Houston, most likely it's going to be in oil and gas or mining or some kind of stuff like that, or some energy related practice. So you have to look at the partners in there, whether you like their backgrounds, how many partners they have, etc. And I just searched their websites for these partners, and I started looking up their backgrounds. Specifically, I looked at PwC and E&Y. But another thing that you can default to, and what I sort of default to, is which of them has the largest tax practice, since that's what this person's looking at. I mean, PwC has the largest tax practice, but this person wasn't even considering that. Now, there might be reasons behind that. Maybe PwC is not hiring out of Houston. So I would go, if I was looking at tax, I would start with PwC and then I would work backwards. If PwC doesn't have an opening or you don't like them, then I would go number 2 to E&Y, because E&Y is basically the second largest tax practice. And if you remember from a while ago, PwC had been acquiring tax departments of large corporations because they're doing the outsourcing thing where people are outsourcing their tax departments to PwC. Now, another firm that was doing that is E&Y, and I'm sure Deloitte has also done some acquisitions as well, but E&Y has another large tax department acquisition area as well. I mean, they all have different names for it. And another thing that I would look at in tax practices is how many former Treasury officials do they have, especially now because we have all this new tax reform that's going to happen with Biden. We saw this with Trump, and then we're going to see this with Biden, right? Where they both changed completely the tax laws to be the way they want it. And that's going to be some of the biggest services to come in the next few years. And the people that are going to be making the most money are the people with the most Treasury officials that can have insight into coming laws. And the people that I'm aware of, and you can check on their websites, and because they have live streaming feeds and podcasts, is PwC and E&Y again. Because you have to remember, Deloitte is more of a consulting firm. And so that's the kind of feel you're going to get if you go to Deloitte for tax. You're going to be more of a consultant, which is good and bad. And I'm not really talking about KPMG, because KPMG should be your last choice as far as I'm concerned. The only reason you'd go there is if you really like the people or the compensation was way and above the others. Because even if it's a little bit more, I still don't think it's worth it unless you really, really get along with the partners and you've learned a lot about the tax department. I think KPMG should be your last choice no matter what. But other than that, I would make a decision between PwC and E&Y for tax anywhere within the United States, unless the money or the partners are really good, or you're going to work directly with the partner right out of the bat, or you're going to be working with an exceptional person that you know personally, then you can go to the other ones. But there's nothing wrong with Deloitte either, because you're going to get that name brand recognition on your resume. It's just if you want to work at the better tax departments, I think you choose between E&Y and PwC at this point. I think PwC would be at the top, but you still have to learn what you're going to be working on. Know the partners, research that on their website. You can find all this stuff out. It's a little bit hard, but if you search it, and you can find the area leaders, the office managing partners. You can find a lot of information to help you. And another thing you want to look at is the firms often put out guides, tax guides. But if you're depending on which office you're going to work on, you want to look at the insights and guides for that office and what industries are out of the office. If you're in New York, it's going to be financial services. Houston, it's going to be energy. And you want to see if they have guides in your line of service, whether it's tax or audit. In audit, it would probably be more insights into various accounting practices. It might not be an overall accounting guide for that industry, but maybe they do. And you want to see which one has the most thoughtful and the most extensive guide, because then that'll tell you who's has the most expertise in that area. And another thing you can find in those guides is the partners that help put them together, and maybe you can do a little bit of research, and maybe you'll recognize some of them from your interviews, and you can see what they work on. But that's a way that I would approach figuring out which firm to work for. You want to have one that has the most name brand recognition, either in your line of service, industry, has the best clients that you want to work on. Maybe you want to work on a specific client, but that's another thing I think people get hung up on. Like, if you want to work on a specific client in the Big Four, that's not always possible, even if it's in that office, because a lot of other people probably think the same thing. They want to work on that client. It's either the easiest or the most name brand recognition. So you might not be able to get that client because the client's already filled up with everybody that wants to work on that client. So you might have to take over another client. So don't get too stuck on clients. But if the client has a need and you really want to work on it, then maybe that'll factor into your choice. But that's a way that I would choose the firms to work for. And that this is more of an intelligent, or at least my view is more intelligent and research-based choice. A lot of people just make choices because of what other students say on campus, or maybe the logo, because Deloitte has a really nice logo. It's colorful. The one firm might be more dominant on social media that you like than another firm, whether you use LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, etc. So maybe that's why you're choosing them. But this is a more intelligent way, because you want to look at the partners and the industry that you're going to work in. You don't want to just go with your gut, because if you're just going to go with your gut, go with your gut. But if you want to research it, this is the way that you can research it and think about it. So that's the podcast for today. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast to stay up to date, and support us financially through the Buy Me a Coffee link in the show notes to this podcast, if you can. And if you can't, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Big Four Accounting Firms, and like this video on our YouTube channel. Thanks for listening.